slow and steady wins the race. It was the middle of a very hot April. Lots of visitors came up to Ofsted Castle to either admire the historical castle, check out the lovely dinosaur models in the park, or look at majestic animals and birds along the grounds. Stephen and Millie loved their work as much as the passengers loved seeing the sights. Well, that's another successful school trip, chuckled Stephen. They couldn't get enough of the T-Rex. How's everything on your end, Millie?
Just as successful, thank you, Stephen.
Millie smiled.
I think I saw Luke's dear friend along the estate this morning. The visitors thought he was so cute.
Just then, the two engines felt a slight rumbling beneath their wheels and the sound of two loud whistles. Oh dear, here comes trouble, said Stephen.
And they're a few minutes early too,
sighed Millie. At that second, the two streaks of teal and magenta, Connor and Caitlin, raced into the castle station. But as soon as they braked, they didn't realize until it was too late that they both overran the platforms.
Whoops,
chuckled Caitlin.
Just a few inches off target.
Maybe so, but I won the race that time, boasted Connor.
No, you didn't. I did.
I was a few centimeters further than you.
No, you weren't. I was.
No, I was. That's enough, you two, snapped Stephen. Regardless on who arrived first, your passengers won't like their engines missing the platform. The two engines blushed with embarrassment. Yes, Stephen.
Sorry, Stephen.
Honestly,
said Millie.
If you two weren't going so fast all the time, you would be in a lot less trouble. Maybe you should take things slower every once in a while.
But we're streamlined express engines,
said Caitlin. We need to go fast to keep up with timetables, added Connor.
Maybe so, but you may need to slow down and watch the rails carefully,
Millie advised. The next day, just before the homeward rush, Connor and Caitlin were still thinking about what Millie had said.
Asking a streamlined engine to go slowly?
Thought Caitlin.
She's just asking for the impossible.
It's like asking a tortoise to go faster, added Connor. It's not gonna happen. Just then, the guard blew his whistle and signaled for both engines to leave with his green flag.
Ready?
Started Caitlin.
Set.
Go! Cried Connor, and shot out of the castle grounds.
Hey, that's cheating!
Caitlin quickly caught up with Connor on the way down the mountain. Soon, the two engines went along two separate tracks on their way to Vickerstown. Connor thought for sure he was going to win this race, but then there was trouble. There was a level crossing on Connor's track. Bertie the bus was trying to cross, but his engine was malfunctioning. It made him start and stop suddenly and made him difficult to move. Connor was going so fast that he didn't even see Bertie or the closed crossing gates until it was too late. Watch out! Cried Bertie. Stop! Stop! Fizzling fireboxes! Gasped Connor. He braked as hard as he could, but he had been going so fast his wheels only screeched along the rails. Luckily, Bertie managed to get to the other side of the crossing just before Connor crashed into the gate. The gate managed to slow him down a little, allowing him to finally come to a stop. Both the engine and the bus breathed a big sigh of relief. Connor, what on earth do you think you're doing? Shouted Bertie angrily. My passengers could have been seriously injured. Connor soon saw what he meant. He could see that his coaches were just a few inches away from Bertie's back end. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, Bertie, called Connor. As he saw Bertie drive away crossly, he felt ever so bad about himself. Meanwhile, Caitlin was racing along a different track. The Duke and Duchess of Boxford's summer house was just a blur as she sped along the line.
You can cheat all you want, Connor,
she puffed to herself.
but I'm going to win this time.
A few miles down, Spencer was taking the Duke and Duchess to the mainland. They were on their way to see an Alicia Botti opera performance. But both he and Caitlin were coming towards a section of track where a big puddle had formed. It had been raining the night before. As Caitlin sped along, she went straight through the puddle like a hot knife in butter, and Spencer was showered from funnel to wheels in muddy rainwater. What the? Spluttered Spencer. Even though Caitlin was going too fast to see Spencer and the puddle, she did notice a red signal up ahead. She finally slowed down. Caitlin! Shouted Spencer. He huffed over to her and stopped at the same signal. What do you think you are doing, splashing me with dirty water like that? Caitlin was surprised.
I'm so sorry, Spencer. I didn't see you back there.
Oh, this is terrible, Spencer groaned. Alicia Botti can't see me like this. She'll think I'm unprofessional. When Connor and Caitlin next met on the mainland, they talked about their recent experiences and were both shocked about the others.
You were really that close to Bertie's passengers?
Gasped Caitlin. Yeah, groaned Connor. And instead of taking them to the station, Bertie would have taken them to the hospital.
My goodness.
The two engines thought.
You know, Millie was right,
Thought Caitlin.
We are going much too fast these days.
Yeah, Connor agreed. None of this would have happened if we had been going a lot slower and looked more carefully. So, on their next journey to Olmsted, instead of racing each other or seeing who was the fastest, they decided to go at half their speed. It was 3:30, and at Olmsted Castle, Stephen and Millie were still waiting for their passengers. They were growing confused and a little worried. It'll be dinner time soon, thought Stephen. I wonder what's keeping Connor and Caitlin.
They never usually take this long,
Put in Millie.
They're usually on time, if not early.
At last, they could see the two engines in the distance, but going at a much slower pace as they agreed, and their eyes were glued to the tracks. But there was still trouble once they had finally reached their platforms. Instead of overshooting the platforms, the engines had to face a mob of angry passengers. This is ridiculous, said a particularly angry one. A tortoise can move much faster than that blasted engine. Stephen and Millie were getting confused. What's going on with you two? Asked Stephen. Why are you going this slowly? Connor and Caitlin looked at each other.
Well, you see,
Caitlin began, and they told Stephen all about it, from their acts of carelessness to their recent agreement. Goodness me, gasped Stephen. You were really that close to Bertie's passengers? Oh, yes, shouted Connor. He didn't like being reminded of his near collision.
But when I suggest you two to slow down, I didn't mean to go that slow,
said Millie.
Your passengers don't like it, as you have seen.
but if we go at our normal speed, we could have another accident, if not worse. We could fly off the rails or crash into another engine or...
Caitlin,
Called Millie.
you too can be careful and fast at the same time. It is possible, and it will please everyone.
The two big engines thought about it, and they soon realized how silly they had been. From that moment to this very day, Connor and Caitlin still race each other to make their journeys fun and exciting. But they both always remember to keep a good lookout for signals, other engines, and things on the line. This makes the Fat Controller and Sir Robert Norby very pleased with them. As for Millie and Stephen, they'd prefer to stick to a much slower, relaxing speed. The visitors prefer it that way.